Hello. Welcome back to Pop Culture Therapy. I'm Advent Nebula.
And I'm Cruellica Kain.
So, this is going to be spoiler talk here, but be forewarned, we're talking about Doctor Strange today. And what is the future of the MCU, and is this good direction that Disney's pulling the MCU into?
So I guess we should preface this. This is not anything about like what Sam Raimi did or how he directed the movie, because this would have happened with or without him.
Yeah, Scott Derrickson still was executive producer of this movie, even though he couldn't direct it. So a lot of the ideas that were in this, if Derrickson had still directed it, more than likely still would have popped up, but it probably would have been more of a straight horror than a Sam Raimi horror.
Exactly, which I think for certain elements of Sam Raimi horror is probably a little bit better because he's a little bit more sillier with it and people of all ages can enjoy it.
Where Derrickson's upcoming film that they worked on is about a child serial killer. So...
Is that the Black Phone?
Yes.
So, we're talking about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
And what we've noticed from talking to general people and also from consensus of our groups of friends, we're all comic fans. We actually enjoyed what elements from the comics that this took. Almost all of us had watched WandaVision and What If before we had gone into this movie. And then the people we've talked to that did not watch WandaVision and What If and weren't general comic fans or even a Sam Raimi fan have very mixed opinions about this movie.
Or another thing that we've been seeing is that if people watch WandaVision, maybe they didn't watch What If, but they at least watched WandaVision, there's a lot of people very upset about how Wanda Maximoff proceeds forward. So we're going to assume everybody listening to our podcast is not a major comic book fan. We're kind of going, well, we're going to assume you are, but you may not know a lot of the lore. So Wanda Maximoff, just starting with her because she's a pivotal part of the movie, was not always a hero.
No, she started off as a villain, and they've changed her lore several times. She was at one point the daughter of Magneto, but with this movie, they were pulling from the more recent source material where she was a daughter of the Living Tribunal, where the castle where she's in the movie is a temple to the Living Tribunal.
Correct. And she also, so they've changed this over the years as well, where she started off a mutant, then she goes to Inhuman, and now she's
a full descendant of the Living Tribunal.
And she's more magical than she is a mutation. So basically, with Wanda Maximoff, if you don't know much about her character, Vision is what kind of keeps her stable.
Vision has always been the one that has kept her stable, and whatever incarnation of the multiverse it has been.
Exactly.
He's been the one thing that has kept her sanity. And anybody who's read House of M, after Vision had died before the events of that, she went batshit insane.
And so she starts off as a villain, kind of like what they did in Age of Ultron. But rather than having like that quick turn as not that it was a quick turn, it was a 2-hour movie, but it took years in the comics for her to become an anti-hero, a hero, another anti-hero.
And then a member of the Avengers.
Exactly. So, yes, in the comics, she is currently of that heroic nature, but that wasn't always her character. So, many of us comic book fans were very excited to see the true incarnation of Scarlet Witch.
And we saw that when she got a hold of the Darkhold at the end of WandaVision, and we're like, okay, we're going to see the Scarlet Witch as she's portrayed when she goes and uses her full potential.
And I think what a lot of fans were betrayed of from a lot of the articles I've seen, from talking with people, some of the fans were betrayed by Wanda Maximoff because obviously she had a heartbreaking story in WandaVision. But when you end the series, she hears her sons and she's she's studying up the Darkhold. So you're under that assumption that she is on this quest to save her children, and she's still good at heart. But basically, as I think many people have talked about, the WandaVision is basically an allegory for basically coping with loss.
Yeah, it truly is. And the other controversy that you've been hearing online is that Strange was not in the movie enough to really be fleshed out for his character arc, which it more was a Wanda movie than it was a Strange movie. But then again, you can tell this is setting up the larger picture for Doctor Strange going into the future of the MCU at the same time.
But at the same time, how many minutes constitutes being enough in a movie to constitute development? Because let's use Godzilla. Let's go.
Most Godzilla's movies, he's not in the movie for much of the time.
No, he's maybe in the movie for like 20 minutes.
The most he was in any of the movies I've read, I can't remember which one it is, but it's 38 minutes.
Yeah, and usually the movies are like an hour and a half to 2 hours. Now, obviously, the older ones are a lot shorter, but it's not like you have monster battles or the monster itself. Like, looking at the original Godzilla movie, just the original 1954 one, you have a lot going on. It's not just Godzilla. It's talking about what's going on. It's talking about how everybody's coping with it. It's talking about how everybody's reacting to the situation. Yeah. They're reacting more to a situation than they are actually reacting to the monster. You can even look at Jaws. How long is Bob or Bruce in the movie?
Total of 18 minutes because they couldn't get the robot to work properly, which actually helped the film.
Well, it did. It helped the film significantly, but you have the titular creature who everybody is expecting for a shark attack on the least amount of time, but it gives you the most amount of tension. The reason why I argue that Doctor Strange did have great development is because you actually got to see him growing as a character.
Yeah, and I do like the fact that he is not the Sorcerer Supreme because he was blipped for 5 years, as they like to call the snap in the universe, and Wong got the position. And Wong as a character, I enjoy the way Benedict Wong is actually playing this character.
And the thing is, Wong is actually more powerful than Strange. The only reason Strange is considered all-powerful is, one, because of the comics, and two, because he has the Time Stone.
But he doesn't have the Time Stone anymore. Now he has his third eye.
Exactly. But if you see it, he is not weaker.
He's just going through a transition period trying to find himself as his character arc for this movie.
Well, exactly. So I feel like this is actually giving him back some of his humanity because, one, he has to deal with the loss of his loved one. Not through death, but just
from the fact Christine got married and then meeting the different universe version of her at the same time.
And even the different universe, she's jaded against Steven because of the fact that he did exactly what he's doing here with the Darkhold, trying to get it to stop everything. He's thinking he's trying to do it for the good of mankind. But as we're seeing with Wanda in the movie, what is the stopping point? And who constitutes good of mankind?
And then later in the movie, when you meet the Strange from What If that caused the universe incursion.
Well, and that's not the same, which frustrates me. But it's still
the same idea.
Yeah, I was a little sad that it wasn't the same.
But he did a lot of the same actions.
Exactly. And so Doctor Strange has a lot going on. Now, the next controversy we have of Doctor Strange is actually America Chavez. Because people are not sure how to process her.
Yeah, and a lot of people that don't read the comics don't understand. She comes from a universe where no males exist. So she's got two moms, and she's the only version of herself from her universe because she's the only one that has this power to jump through the multiverse.
And she is not the first LGBTQ plus character, nor is she the first lesbian for the Marvel Universe. But what sets her apart is something that I think a lot of the Marvel fans are having a problem with. She's a teenage demographic. And most of the characters, or most of the actors, let's say, that have been appearing as heroes in the movies or shows, are in their
late 30s.
Mid to late 30s.
Or in the case of some of them, like Jeremy Renner, late 40s.
Well, same thing with Robert Downey Jr.
And Mark Ruffalo.
Exactly. They're closer to the 50 side. So
then you have the outlier like Tom Holland, who's in his early 20s.
Yeah, he's about,
The actress that plays America Chavez, I cannot pronounce her first name, but she's only 19.
Yeah, she's young. She's truly, truly young. And I think for a lot of the comic fans that are watching the movies, they get it, but I think for the wide audience, she's either not hitting the demographic because most of them are so used to the older actors and actresses that they're kind of expecting that she should have the maturity of them, or they're thinking, well, she doesn't represent us type of thing.
Where a lot of the fans can accept it with Parker because we're just so used to Peter Parker's stories like that.
Which, and I think it's also because of what she stands for as a character. A lot of the controversy that happened prior to the movie being released, which I think also has affected a lot, is the fact that American Chavez, the character, is a lesbian. And it makes sense knowing what her world is like, because
her entire universe is like
well,
that.
exactly. So if she's never known a man
until she ended up universe hopping,
why is she going? You kind of feel attraction. Obviously, it's a natural thing. I'm not saying, well, because she never knew men, she's not attracted to them. That's not fair. But you are attracted to what you're attracted to. And if that's what she's attracted to, it should not matter. But when you have countries like China refusing that.
Also, the entire Middle East and Egypt, because they would not delete what is one of her most important character development scenes.
And then I can only imagine here in the United States, because we're so split on our belief systems or willingness to look outside of ourselves and appreciate people are going to love who they're going to love. Because one thing that really amazes me is, as a character in the movie, you would have never guessed, unless you read the comics, that she was a lesbian.
Yeah. The only way you would have known is by the backstory of the comics.
Yeah, other than that, it's not like there was anything to say who she was. Now, is the movie a good movie?
It's a good Sam Raimi movie. It's an average Marvel movie, though.
It is. And that's not to say they didn't try.
You could tell there was a lot of production and script changes when it transitioned from Derrickson to Raimi. You can see that.
You can also see that by the purchase of Fox, you have a lot of additional things coming up, because obviously
Fantastic Four and the Mutants are coming in.
And especially when you have Patrick Stewart coming in as Charles Xavier.
And which he said will be his last time playing Charles Xavier.
Which I think is only fair. The man has been playing Charles Xavier since
1998.
I was going to say, for over 20 years. So he deserves to retire that character.
And then we got our first look at John Krasinski as Reed Richards.
For Mr. Fantastic, which, that was a weird pseudo-spoiler.
Yeah.
Because everybody said, when you look at a picture of Reed Richards' comic book,
and then you look at John Krasinski with a beard,
they look the same. Everybody wanted John Krasinski and his wife.
But we know Emily Blunt will not be playing Sue.
But even with John Krasinski, that was like a weird spoiler, because everybody wanted it, and it almost like became its own spoiler because everybody said this is who we want, and then inevitably the universes worked.
It would have not happened if Daniel Craig had actually signed on to play Balder. It would have been Balder instead of Reed Richards.
Which I'm quite happy we had Mr. Fantastic.
Instead of Balder, if people don't know, Balder is Thor's half-brother, which, the way Chris Hemsworth's staying on, we'll probably get that story arc eventually.
Well, we also have, along with that, Black Bolt.
Which the Inhumans series was terrible.
And a lot of people had a lot of weird frustration about Black Bolt.
Yeah.
Because, one, like you said, Inhumans TV series.
It was not good, but then Black Bolt's pretty much one of the most powerful Marvel characters is wiped out so damn quick.
Well, as one person I talked to even today said, it just felt so hokey.
But when you think about it being a Sam Raimi film, it makes sense being a Sam Raimi film.
Well, I did like the fact that, excuse me, that Xavier was in his hovercraft.
And they played Xavier like he was from the 97 X-Men show.
But to be quite honest, seeing that hovercraft live action...
And also hearing Danny Elfman rearrange the X-Men theme into the movie was a nice Easter egg.
It was a nice Easter egg, but can I just say, with the way that looked in live action compared to comic books, he looked like he was like a little kid in that.
Yeah.
He looked so tiny, and I was like, okay, maybe not everything we want from the comics translates as well as it could.
Yeah. And then we're seeing what the future of this. We're going to be seeing the...
We're good, just go.
Yeah. We're going to be seeing, with Thor Love and Thunder coming up, the future of the cosmic side, and then this movie is obviously going to be leading into the next Ant-Man movie with the multiverse going even further, because we're going to be having Kang come back in that.
Well, I think some commentary I've seen online and from hearing from others, one of the issues is that we're now in that realm of, we now have magic. Yes, we had Doctor Strange, who is the Sorcerer Supreme, but we had Wanda, who originally was just a mutant.
Yeah.
Who was mutated by the Infinity Stone. So to have her actually now be a magical being changes everything, because now we have to figure out how can we make magic work in a universe where we have aliens, gods, everything else.
Yeah, and we're gonna more than likely be seeing that get fleshed more out in Loki season 2, and in Agatha's standalone series coming out, which also begs the question: how much is too much side material that's going to be mandatory for the movie viewings going forward?
Well, and we actually got that here. So, with this movie, kind of going into our next step about it, is that a prerequisite to watching this movie was obviously must have watched WandaVision. Then you at least had to watch 3 episodes of What if not the entire series. And then I would also recommend, alongside that, it can't hurt to have watched the other ones, like Loki, because there's not like specific references.
But Loki's really setting up what's going to be going forward in the entirety of this phase of the MCU with its ending.
But with at least WandaVision and What If, you need to have seen those to know about Captain Carter and to understand about, like, Monica Rambeau and everything else.
And to understand what is Wanda's motivation on why she's gone full villain here.
Exactly. So that begs the question, because if you think about, for Ant-Man, you need to have watched...
Right now they have said Loki is going to be a mandatory viewing for it, and then the Marvels next year, they're going to make it so Miss Marvel, Loki are both going to be mandatory viewing for that. And also Guardians of the Galaxy 3, James Gunn has come out and said the Werewolf by Night special, that's this Halloween special, and the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special are both going to be mandatory before you see Guardians 3.
So with that, like you said, what is too much, and what does this do to prevent others? Because yes, there's a lot of people out there who have Disney Plus.
But there's a lot of fans out there that do not.
Because of many reasons. Cost, maybe it's not available in their location.
Or they don't have a good enough internet access to stream this stuff.
Exactly. And yes, all of the shows are available through illegal means, but with Disney being how big they are working really hard to prevent that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not bringing out physically. So the challenge with downloading digital content that's coming from a streaming service is it's actually very difficult unless you have creative means to do it, or you can hack the system, which there are people who can. But in my willingness of saying, if you can hack a system, why are you downloading the content to give out for free?
Yeah.
You'd be making hella more money doing other shit. Obviously, please don't steal my credit card because I want that. But nevertheless, it's hard and unfair to require people to have all of these things. Like, to watch it for fun, because when they originally came out with the series, they said they were going to be side stories, but they weren't actually going to be reference for the movies. Like, you didn't have to watch the movie to get it. But watching Doctor Strange, seeing where Wanda comes in talking about her sons, showing her as full Scarlet Witch with the Darkhold, you would be confused out of your mind, because you'd be like, this was not how she was like at the end of Endgame.
Yeah, and with Quantumania, a lot of people are going to ask, who's this Kang coming in, because they didn't watch Loki. Thor Love and Thunder, at least, is going to be a standalone film. They tying into nothing going on.
Well, hopefully it doesn't tie into anything from What If, because that Thor episode in What If was terrible. But
Tito Waititi said he directed and wrote the movie without anything going into the MCU's back catalog of the TV shows. Wakanda Forever, we don't know anything about.
Now, to be fair, I do appreciate that Disney is trying to give everybody a more robust experience so that you don't just have to go to the theater. I appreciate that and I respect that, because like with Hawkeye, it was a great opportunity to give an actor who we feel like would never get his own film a chance to star and have fun with his character.
Yeah, and Jeremy Renner said that was his last thing on his contract, so this may have been his swan song of the MCU, and at least he got to go out in a really good series. Comparatively,
like, because Black Widow being the swan song
for ScarJo,
that was a terrible letdown. I think mainly because of where it came out. If it came out before Endgame, or before Infinity War, I mean, that would be a different story, because we wouldn't be like, well, we already know she's going to die, so what's the point type of thing.
Yeah.
But with this, we get to see how he was coping with the end of everything Thanos was doing, and then how his relationship with his family was.
Captain America 4 is going to be tying in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is all about Sam ended up carrying the weight of having to carry that shield.
But you had to have watched Falcon and Winter Soldier
before you're going to be able
to really understand what the
Captain America 4 is going to be like when it starts filming.
Because that wasn't greenlit until after the success. No, it was probably like in the works, but like officially greenlit until after the series was done.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating and hard, because
like Loki Season 2 wasn't greenlit until the success of Loki Season 1.
But it's unfair for people who don't have the capability, and you can all of you as viewers, but in the public can say, well, you should just get Disney Plus then. But as we said, there's many reasons you can't. And with streaming services now finding ways to prohibit multiple users. Because, like, you're for Crunchyroll.
I'm paying $14.99 a month to have the multiple access.
Exactly. And I'm paying $16 a month for 2 screens. It does not have to be in the same place. Just 2 people watching at the same time. They never said in their agreements that it couldn't be, like, one in Arizona, one in Lakewood, and then if either of you drop off, me.
Yeah. And then with my Disney Plus, I'm paying for the ESPN package. That's not cheap.
I was going to say, that's like, what, $20?
$20 to have the, because you get ESPN and Hulu with that.
Well, yeah, and I pay for Hulu separately.
And that's the only way to actually stream live games from ESPN.
Well, yeah, because there's no network for it anymore.
Yeah.
Well, there is on cable, but
the only way to actually stream ESPN without having a cable account is the $20 a month Disney Plus.
Exactly. And so, not everyone has that disposable income, and truthfully, with the advent... Get it? With all of these different streaming services, you kind of have to pick your poison.
Yeah.
What is out there that you truly want to watch? And you kind of have to weigh your options. Like, do I want to watch all the Disney shows? Because either Netflix or Hulu or something else has a lot of what I want. Or Paramount Plus. So you have to weigh those options and not...
And then I'm also paying for Prime as well on top of this, so...
Well, exactly. We have Netflix, Hulu. We also have Prime, AMC Plus, and I'll most likely get Paramount Plus because I have to, it's RuPaul. But that's a lot of streaming services, and not everybody has that disposable income.
And the way Netflix is going with the tier you're on, they're making that the ad tier later this year, so you might be dropping Netflix.
Most likely, yes, because there's not enough on there for me to say, oh my god, I must have this streaming service.
Netflix has been shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, they just dropped... Well, that's day for another story.
Yeah.
But
with everything that we've been talking about, what's your guys' opinion on... Is the MCU making it too hard for you in this current phase to actually stay on, or are you enjoying everything that they're doing?
Or have they jumped the shark by adding in magic? Because having cosmic makes sense because you have Thor and you have the Rainbow Bridge, which is a cosmic element.
And then you've always had everything going on with the gods, because the gods have always in the Marvel Universe been cosmic beings.
Exactly. So that has been introduced since the first phase.
Yeah.
But now we're bringing in magic, like truly bringing in magic, and we're bringing in multiverses.
And then you're bringing in the Greek gods, which you couldn't always have had magical ties to their abilities.
Well, yeah, because that was the difference between the Greek and the Norse gods for the Marvel Universe. One was magic-based, one was cosmic-based, and cosmic-based is more scientific, where magic is more that, like, well, magic. I'm not going to try to get into it. But then you have 2 very divided splits. So bringing in the multiverse, do you think, well, here's a question for you. Do you think it's going to help or hinder?
It's really going to depend on how they handle it going forward. Because you can't do Kang's story without involving the multiverse.
But if you go too crazy with the multiverse...
You're going to lose viewers.
You're going to lose viewers. And the problem is, if you are a comic book fan, nobody is ever dead in the comics. So what does that mean? We're just going to recast everybody who's left?
That's basically... Well, they can keep recasting now with the multiverse in, because you can have the same actor play it, or as Loki has shown, you have over 5 different variants and counting on how many different versions there are out there.
Well, exactly. And you have to... It's now a point where fans really have to come to the conclusion, and I think this movie has really demonstrated that, of where is your stopping point as a fan with the MCU. What has gone too far?
Yeah, and we're going to be seeing it too, because not only is magic, but now with Blade coming in and Black Knight, and also Werewolf by Night, the supernatural elements are really going to start flowing in now too.
Mm-hmm. So...
Buckle up, folks. You're going to end up either really loving it if you're a casual fan, or you're going to be going, okay, this is getting too comic book for me.
Well, and it's getting too complicated. Do I have to have a reference guide every time I see a movie?
And now all these movie fans are going to be going, now I know what comic fans feel like.
Because I can guarantee you, I'm looking over at my shelf, and I just have 2 that are purely visible of reference guides to understand characters within Marvel and DC. And that's not including all the comic books and omnibuses that we have.
Yeah, on the other shelf.
And then you have your Fates.
Let's not even talk about that multiverse of...
So, we understand reference guides because if you love a series so much, and it's a very long-running series, you get used to having a reference guide. But now...
Or you end up even writing parts of the online reference guides.
But with that said, what did you think of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness? What do you think about the fact, like you had asked earlier, about the barrier to entry to have a homework assignment before you can go into the movie?
And with that, we will catch you later.
Bye!